All right, so let's start class 6. Today we're going to be talking about the display property. Display property is very important because when you want to arrange your content on the page, this is one of the basic properties that you need to know in order for you to place your elements anywhere you want it on the page. And under the display property, we're going to be focusing on these display flex and display grid. In this class, majorly, we're going to be talking about the flex. So how you can use flex to arrange your content on the page. But before that, we've already talked about what is inline. I know I mentioned inline element. So we can use this display inline to make any element to behave as a inline. And any element that is inline before, you can make them to behave like a block by using the display of a block. But the majorly here, we're going to be focusing on the flex property. For example, here now look at this Mailverse site there. So if you look at this page, the content are placed side by side. And if you look at it, the logo is on the left side. And again, we have all this under content by the right hand side. How can you do something like this? So flex make it easier for us there like that. The same thing too, these two buttons, they are placed side by side. And again, on this place, these are the content. So this is the box. So inside this box, you have this content here, then you have this content inside it, and followed by this other one along with the text. How can you lay out your content in this way? So you are going to be using the display property to be able to achieve this kind of the diagram that is showing on the screen there, like that. So in order for us to be able to do this, you need to have basic knowledge about what is flex container and what is a flex item. So if you look at it now inside my code, I have these elements. So we have this display flex class, and again too, I still have this flex container on it. They're like that. So and inside it, we have other elements. So this div, this another div, and this is another div, and this is another element inside it. And when you're talking about flex container, so any element that you display as flex, that's what we call the flex container. And any element that is directly inside it are what we refer to as a flex item. So here, this div is inside this div here that we call containers, and that means this one is going to be item. It's not about the class that I'm putting here. This is just to explain what is going on. So it's not a must that you have to give it a class flex item or you give it a class flex container. No, that's not what turned into flex container, and this is not what turned into flex item. So in order for any of your elements to be a container, then you have to display it as a flex. So, and this is what is going to make your element to be displayed as flex. And what does this thing do? It to arrange all its items inside it in the horizontal form by default. So let me save this, go back to the page and scroll down, and as you can see inside it we have all these boxes being arranged side by side. But before that, let's just style them so that we can see what is going on. So flex item like that, and here we have background of no, it can't be red. So let's say this one is blue, which is going to make everything to be blue. That's not what I want. I want to style each one of them separately. And if you look at it from our code, each one of them have the same classes. So I can start through the box, I can start through this flex item. But what I want to do is that these first ones you have a color different from this and different from this and different from this. But I want to use this same class to select them but separately. So I have, how do you do that? So in CSS, we have the child, uh, uh, we have this selector which is known as this child selector there, like that. And in order for you to use it, you have to use what we call the pseudo selector. So all the pseudo selector used to start with this column. Some of them start with double column, but the one I need here is the first child. So what this one will do is that anywhere you have all these flex items, the first one that is there, like the first one that you can find that parent, that's the one is going to target. So if you look at it here now, coming back here, as you can see, this is the first one. So this is the one is going to talk to. It won't talk to any other one. Before I save it, you see that it's the first one we use is talking to all of them because it's looking for all of them. But here now, we are not looking for all of them. We're only looking for the first one, the one that is the first one inside its parent. So where's the parent here? This is the parent. And inside that parent, we have a lot of them inside it. So, but I don't want to select all of them. I only want to select the first item that I have there like that. That's what this selector is doing there like that. So once this thing is saved and go back to the page, you see that it's the only first one that is getting picked there like that. So if I want to select the second one too, so in CSS there is something like so there is something like a second child because there is no way this thing will know whether you have second, third. So what do? We use the end child. So it's not less for you to put the child you are looking for. Even with the first one too, you can use it to still work. Just that first is only constant. First is constant. Last one too is constant. That's the reason why CSS is giving us a simple way of selecting them. But if you want, you can do it in this way like that. But it's always good that you just go with this like that. But if you do it like this too, it works. So I want to select the second one, then I can use this method and it's going to only target the second one. And the advantage of this thing is that you can always rearrange them on this page. So if I move this one now, take it up, like box 2 is now the first one now. So save, you see that it will change automatically there because it's based on the way you arrange the element. It doesn't care about the content that is there. So it doesn't care about your content. What it care about the arrangement here. So since this one now is not the first one on the list, then that's your new first one. But here, let me take it back to the second because it's based on the first one it can find there like that. And again, it will not work if something else is there like this. Like if you have another element here, it will not work. But I will talk about that one. That's where the end child or be the type of comes in now. So yeah, there's another selector known as flex item, but I will skip that one for now. So we have the first of a type. So this is another one on its own. So this one, it doesn't care about the placement in the parent. It care about the position of that same type there like that. But for now, I will skip it because we don't need it. When we get to the time we need this one too, I'm going to bring it there. How many did I have here? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we need to target the third one too. Yeah, like this. So AI complete. So it's not completing it. So let me just duplicate the stuff, then change it to 3. And this one, let me use Peru, but this Peru and this one looks close together. So let me use green here and let me use purple here. So save. And as you can see, we have all of them here. But the reason why they are being placed side by side like this is because we are displaying the container as flex. So once this one is removed, you see that all the elements are going to be placed the way you normally type them on the page. So if it is block element, they are going to be stacked on top of each other. If it is the inline element, then it will not have that one. For example, here now, coming down here and use span. So this one is going to be, let's just say span 1 like that. And again, we're going to have span 2, but they should have that same class too. So I'm going to have a class and flex item like this, and at the same time, flex item. So save, and as you can see now, they are now placed side by side, but something is wrong here like that. And can you see what just happened now? You see that this one is not having that color again. It's not this one that is having the color. Why? It's because the way I select it, I'm using the last child. So it's the last one. Since I've already had new element, it will remove from that one and go to. So if you want it to work, so you have to let's target this one by 4 and let's just use Peru uh para like this. So save, go back now. It's now there again too for the fifth one like that. So this is going to be the fifth one, and this one is going to be cyan in this way. So save, and as you can see, by default all elements are going to be displayed according to what you want there. But for example, now if I want the last one to be block, what I can just do is to do display block like this and save. Then it's going to be on its own line. And don't forget, by default it's just inline. So, and anyone that is inline before, you can convert it to block, or the one that is inline you can, or the one that is block, you can convert it to inline. But that's not the major thing, because they are not, they are kind of a old. There are places you are going to be using them, but the major thing we are focusing on right now is the display of flex. And why are you going to use display of flex? You are always going to be using display of flex on the container. And what is container? Is the one that is grouping all your elements together. So the one that is grouping all of them together is what we call the container, and that's the one you are going to display as flex. So whatever element you display as flex is going to be a container to all its direct children under it, or the descendants are there like that. So all the direct descendant. And what is direct element here? So if you look at this div from here, so if you look at the arrangement from the code, you see that from this container here, we can go to that div directly. The same thing too for this second one. As you can see, there's nothing in between them. But now if I click on this div that is under section, as you can see now, section is blocking the two. So you can't just go from here to here without you passing through the section. So there now, this div here is not direct under this particular div. It is inside, but it is not direct under it there like that. So it is not direct. So this div that we have here, so this div here and this div here, so this one, the one under it, it is directly under this particular, because from this div you can get to it directly. But when you are talking about this div down here, this one now is not direct under this particular one that we have. So you can't just say, oh, this one now is no. So this one here is not direct under, it is inside, but it is not direct. So which means when you are using your flex, flex will only change all the items that are directly under it. So if you are having a nested item, it doesn't change them at all. So if you want to do anything with them, you have to talk to their own parents to change them, because if the grandparent is changing what is done, there's a lot of design you want to do that you'll not be able to do at all, because it's coming from somewhere that is not supposed to come from like that. So anytime you are using the flex, so your container, and you have a lot of nested item inside it, the only thing it will affect are those one that there is no other element that you are passing through before you get to them from that container. So the container first, you need to know the container. Then from the container, you look at the items you want to. So is there anything between them? If there is nothing between them, that is a correct item. But if there is something inside there, then it's not part of the item at all. Even though it is inside, like all these two divs, they are inside this div here, but that doesn't mean they are directly under it. Before you can get to them, as you can see, you have to pass through section. So which means this container here, it will only affect everything as a whole, not that it will affect them one by one. So the only thing it will see, this is what it will see. It doesn't see anything that is inside that container there. So anytime you are using flex here, then it will affect all this one directly, not what is nested inside that box there like that. And how do you turn anything to container? Just display it as flex. And once you display it as flex, you see that it will place them side by side by default, because when you are dealing with flex, we have something known as direction. So which direction are you talking about? So we have the row, we have the column, we have the row reverse, and we have the column reverse. So when you're talking about the row, which is what is happening currently here, it will place all the items side by side. So which means you only have one row. When you say row, it means you only have one row but multiple columns. And when you say your direction should be column, it means you only have one column and multiple rows like that. Because that's what is going on there like that. So and how do you change the direction? So to change the direction, we have the flex direction property that you can use any of these value like that. And what is there by default is just row, so which is not going to do anything at all on the page. But if you want to stack them on top of each other, then you can use column like that. As you can see now, they are no longer, even on this one too, as you can see, everything will stack on top of each other. Nothing like you are in line before you are blocked. No, everything will follow the direction that you mentioned there like that. But apart from this, we have row reverse. So when you say row like that, it means by default in English, everything starts from left to right. But when you reverse it, it means you are changing to the opposite side. So everything that is here will come to this side, or you'll be dealing with right side. So once this thing is saved now, you see that everything is going to inside it's reverse, because you know before the box it start with box one, box two, and so forth like that. But look at it now, box one is now the last one there like that. So it will reverse everything and it will move towards the right. But the same thing with column too. So when you're using column, it starts from the top to bottom based on the way you arrange the elements. So box one, box two, box three. But now if you change it to reverse, you see that we start with the span now, then and so forth like that. So it reverse whatever you have inside it in that way. But again, this is not the only thing you can do with your flex. For example, now if you look at this main website, just like what I mentioned before, you see that all the content here, they are placed far right, while this one is placed to the left side. So we have some other flex property that you can use to manage the extra space that you have in the container. As you can see, we have a lot of space towards the right side. So what do you want to do with that spacing that you have there? That's where these other properties known as this align item and justify content comes in. So they are there for you to manage extra space that you have in the container, which means if you don't have space left, nothing will, you will not see them in action, because they work based on the available space. If there is no available space, you will not see anything on the screen. And in order for us to see the other one, so let me just increase the height to maybe around this 250 like that, so that we have more height in the box. And as you can see, something started happening. You can see that all the items too, they are expanding according to what is going on with the parent there. And what is happening there is known as this stretch. As you can see, by default, it will stretch. What is this align? So when you are dealing with your direction, we have two types of spacing. You have the vertical spacing and you have the horizontal spacing. And that's what these two are there for, like that. So we have justify content and we have the align item. But which one is for which one? Because the way it works is depending on the direction you are working on there, like that. So if you are working, in the row, which is what is there right now, so justify is talking about the horizontal, and align is talking about the vertical, like that. So when you are talking about when you are talking about row, there like that. When you are talking about row, align is this. So align is this, and justify is this. So which means whatever stuff you are doing justify, it's working on the horizontal axis, or the main axis there. That's like the way we used to call it. We call it main axis, and we call this one the secondary axis, like that. So or cross axis. So cross axis, and this is the main axis. But main axis means the direction you are working with. No, since you are working with the row now, so the main direction here is our row, which is the horizontal there. But I always use horizontal and vertical. But normally in CSS, we call it the main axis and we call it the cross axis. And the cross axis is the one that you are not, the direction you are not working with. So, and the main axis is the direction you are working with. So if it is the row you are working with, that means row is the main axis, and the other one is now the cross axis. And if it is the column you are working with, that means your main now is going to be the vertical one, and the horizontal is going to be your cross. But don't let us be using those English, so that it will be easier to understand there, like that. So yeah, when you are dealing with row, justify will work for the horizontal, align will work for the vertical. But if you are dealing with column, then justify is going to be vertical and align is going to be horizontal, like that. And what can you do with them? So what can you do with them? What you can do with them is to utilize the spaces that is left in the container there, like that. And we're going to be starting with the justify content, which we can use to utilize the space. What is there by default is this flex start. And what does that mean is that all the items are going to be packed to the start of your direction that you're working with. Now, since you're working with row, and you know row start from the left, that's why everything is now stacked to the left. But don't forget, it's not just row we have the row reverse. You know, that one now is it's starting from the right side. So which means everything are going to be packed to the right side. And that's the reason you see that it's moving there. But you can change that. Instead of you using start, we can use something known as end. So which means where you normally used to start, go to the end of that. So we control everything. You can see the box is not changed. No, it's not like reverse. Assuming reverse now, so the box will come here. And so, but we are not doing any reverse, but we are moving all the content to the end of the direction we are working with there like that. No, this one is moving all of them. So the space is being distributed between left or right. But what if you want to distribute the spacing in between the content too? There like that. So we have other value like this space here. So we have these three values. We have the space around, space between, and the space evenly. And the most used one is this space between, which is what is being used on the page here like that. So if you look at it, we have all this one here. Then you have the logo by this side, which is staying on this edge, and you have this other one by this edge. So the remaining space, instead of it to be by the right hand side, is now in between the content or the box like that. But you might be thinking, why do I group all this one together as one instead of me grouping them one by one? It's because of what I explained. If you remember, the way this thing works is that any grouping that you have there, like if you have a nested item, it doesn't affect all those items inside it. It's work on them as a group. So what is happening here is that there is another group here. So inside that group, that's why you are now having each one of these items. So you know the outer container, it will never go inside those one. It will never change them. It will change the box that is holding them. And that's the reason you see that I group them, because it doesn't affect. If you want it to affect each one of them, then that means you are not going to group them at all like this. You are going to leave them inside that outer container. So which means it will distribute the spacing in between them like that. Yes. Yes. We have a nested item. Yes. Does that mean before we can have any other parents, like we have a parent? Can you please go back to the photo? So HTML, yes. For the display flex now, yes. The container, then we have each item on that. Yes. Page. Does that mean I have to put every item before I decide? Or can I have a nested item and I still want having a normal item? Of course, that's why it depends on what you are trying to design. Right now, I'm trying to explain how it works, like what is going on behind the scene. By the time we put it into work, you see it, so that by the time we're using it, it will not look strange to you that why is it now working like this. So that's why I'm explaining it for, because whatever you want to do, if the two things is that, do you want the container to affect all these items? If you want it to affect them, then you make them as a normal item. But if you don't want that container to affect them, then you have to group them. So that's the rules there. Because the way Flex work is that it only work on the direct item. Anything nested inside, it will not touch them. So it's not the, so when you now get to where you want to design, so it's not like for you to know whether this one I need to group it or I don't need to group it. So yeah, now since all these things have to go together, you have to group it. Because if you don't group it, it will keep distributing the space in between all this one too. So which means the service will be close to this, followed by the program, followed by the partner, followed by the event, but the spacing is going to distribute it, which is what I want to show now. There like that. So going back into the CSS now, if I use this space around now, since I did not group them, as you can see, it put the spacing in between each one. But look at the one that we nest inside of this one. You see that all those ones are not affected at all. Like that. Let me give them a style. So I think that one is coming from with nested item, I think. So inside it, we have the children. Then the first one should be cyan. The second one should be this. Then save. Now it can't be Peru because the parent too is Peru like that. So let's just use orange or this one. So I think I did not call the stuff correctly. So let me go back up. Yeah, box with nested. So box with nested. So save. No, I did not change this one. Box with nested. So save like that. It's still not with nested, not item. Because if you don't use the correct, no, we talk about it. Don't use correct selector, nothing will happen. Yeah. So as you can see now, it's not, even though they are inside, because they are nested, all those things you are doing from that container, it will not affect them at all. If you want them to do something, then you have to talk to this their own container to change it. So that's how it works. So it can be mixed in between, but what is there is that you need to know that if you are nested deeply inside are there, it will never get affected at all. So that's the rules are there like that. So the spacing now that we are using here, as you can see, we are using the space around. So what this one will do is that the spacing at the edge will be equal, but that doesn't mean it to be the same thing as what is in between, like that. So all the spacing in between will always be the same thing. So the spacing here will be the same as this, as this, as this, as this here. So but it will never be the same thing as the one at the edge. So the edge too are going to be the same spacing. So the spacing you are having here is still the same spacing you are going to have it, but necessarily that are not necessary that it will be the same thing. Majorly, all the one inside used to have more spacing than the edge. And don't forget, all this spacing are based on the available space in the container. Because if there is no space, as you can see, nothing will happen at all. So when there is no space, then nothing will be spared for them. So if you have enough space, those space will be distributed among all the items that you have there. But what if you want to distribute it equally? Like the one at the edge is still the same thing as the one inside, then you can use space evenly like that. So it will make sure that everything is equal like that. So the spacing at the edge is always going to be the spacing inside the box when you have available space. But now as you can see, there is not even more spacing to give to them. Things are no longer there. But the spacing you are seeing here, this one you are seeing like this, that's the padding. So let me remove it. It's because we apply padding. That's why it looks like there is spacing there. As you can see, there is no spacing at all. So when there is no spacing, your justify or align doesn't force any space. It use what is available. So if there is available space, it will make sure that the spacing is distributed equally among all of them there when you are using space evenly. But the one I love to use, or the one you always use, is this space between, because the spacing you want, just put it in between them. Then the edge spacing, you control it yourself by the padding, because you don't want that one to be changing anyhow. As you can see here, the spacing here is always going to be spacing here, not that it will distribute the one, because if you use evenly, this spacing here now, the one at the middle here, it will make sure that it's being used at the edge too, so that the thing will now go to the center, which is not how you want it. The edge here should always be like this spacing. I don't want it to be more than this. This spacing here too, I don't want it. So all the remaining space that is left based on the browser, just distribute it in between. As you can see, the spacing will be distributed in between them. Not that at the, as you can see, the edge spacing still remain the same. Not that, because if you leave the space, if you are using Evelyn, it will just be squishing them together. Most of the time, you don't want the spacing at the edge to just be wasting, because you want to put element at the edge, then the spacing can now come in between them like that. So that's what is going on. And everything you can do with your main axis, you can always do it too with your cross axis, which is the vertical one there. So we can always use align item. And if you look at it by default, all of them, they are stretched. So that's what is there by default. It will stretch everything. This is what is there by default. So if I type it, nothing will change like that, because it is stretched by default. Apart from stretch, we can use our this in there. So we can use justify and come outside. Let me use center first so that you see that one. So as you can see, everything has been centered vertically because we are using align item. Assuming it is justify you are using, then it will be in the horizontal axis, as you can see. So if you are using justify, so it is like this, and if you are using align, it is the vertical axis. That one, if you are in row, that one, if you are in row. If you are not in row, maybe you change it to column, you see that it will switch. So when you're dealing with column, align is now horizontal now, while justify is vertical. So which means if I save it now, you see that the way it's going to work is different now, because you switch the stuff like that. But for now, I always go with the row in this way, and switch this one back to align. So yeah, from there we can just say justify, and what what's wrong with my VS Code? Oh, sorry. This is what I want to type. Yeah, so as you can see, like that, we have all the content at the edge. So what if you now want to place the content here? Now what you just need to do is to first justify to the end, then align end like that. So justify flex end and align flex end, it will be here. And if you want it to be here, first of all, no, it's still going to justify to the end, and the align is going to be start. So if you want it to get there, so what we just need to do here is to start like that, so it will be start. But now you need to move it to the end here. So in order for it to go there, we just need to justify our content. That's just it. So it all depends. Also, we just need to justify abi flex end like that, and as you can see, it will be there. And if you want it to be at the center for the two of them, so what we just need to do, remove this, change it to center, and again to change this one to center. And this is what we normally use to move something to the center of the container like that. And if you still want them to be centered vertically, but distribute the spacing in between them on the horizontal there, so we can just justify a space between like that. So save, and as you can see, vertically it has center, but for the other one we spread it across box like that. But there's some other things that can happen here. There's some other thing that can happen here like that. For example, let's imagine we don't have enough space left. You see that some of them, they are going outside of this course. Once any direction you give to it, that direction is what it's going to maintain. It will never go to another direction. But sometimes you want them to behave like the text we have here. So if you have enough space, you see that all those texts, they are covering up that space. And if there is no space, they are wrapping to the next line. So if you want your flex to behave like that, we have the value or the property you can use to make it behave that way. So what we just need to do here is to use the flex wrap. So this flex wrap is going to control where this you want this thing to wrap. As you can see, we have no wrap, which is what is there by default, so it will never wrap. The direction you give to it, that's what it will maintain. If the container are now bigger than the container, they will start going outside of that container. But if you want it to wrap, what you just need to do is to have wrap. But you know, you can reverse the wrap too, so that it will go the opposite way. But majorly what you need is this one, as you can see. So any one of them that it cannot take up or that spacing, they will wrap. So you can see all this one, it get to this. So these two boxes here cannot contain that space, so it wrap to next line, followed by a span. So this span too cannot take up to that space, then it wrap to next line there. That doesn't mean that's their placement, it's just wrapping. So if you have enough space, they will start going back to their original space that they need. And when there is no space, it will move to and as you can see that it is what we do is center. You know, it make sure that it will distribute that space. But if I don't want it to be like that, I can just say flex start like that, or flex end, depending on where you want them to be like that. So it's going to wrap all the way, or you can do the other one. As you can see, it's going to stretch so that I cover up all the entire space that you have there like that. Or if you want to reverse it, you can always reverse the stuff like that. So, and if you notice, all the property I've been using since, we are applying it on the container, but those property are getting affected on the, like, it's affecting all the items that we have inside it. So any container, any element you display as container or you display as flex, whatever property you'll be using there is not affecting that element. It's going to affect all the items that is inside it. So most of the property you are going to be typing here is not really affecting the container. It will affect all the items, and that's the reason why you see that only the item are moving. Nothing is wrong with the container. Container still maintain its original location. Whatever is going to be affecting is the direct item or the direct descendant under it there. Anything that is not nested inside it, it will not touch it at all there like that. And apart from this, there's some value you can use on the child. So there's some value you can use on the children there like that. So in order for us to see this, so let me just comment out all this one. so that we deal with other element that is simple, because if you have a lot of element inside it, you might not see all this thing in action. Now don't forget, it depends on the available space. If there is no space, you will not see anything that is going on there. So based on that, we have other elements here, which is this. As you can see, we have this sample page for flex. So going back to the page, which is going to be this our form here like that. So you can see we have form and we have this box image, but it looks somehow on the page. So let's style it so that we can see what is going on like that. So in order for us to see what is going on, let me quickly title this. So background color is going to be Peru like this. So save so that we can see. As you can see, this is where it started from and this is where it ends. So let me apply my margin so that we can have enough space. So I'm going to use margin. We talked about this before. Top and bottom should be 3 rem. Left and right should be 1 rem like this. So on the page now, I have it placed in this way. And at the same time, I'm going to be using padding, which is going to be 1 rem, so that I have spacing inside the box. And what do we want to do? As you can see, there are two sections inside it. We have the section for the right box and we have the section for the form box. So let's start them too. So we have the right box, which is going to be background color of or no, orange is too be visible. So let's use green like this. And for the other one, we have the form box. Here we are going to be using cyan. So save, and as you can see, the two of them now, they are coming out. But what do we want to do? We want to place them side by side, because this is what we are trying to do here. Let me see if I still have the image on the page. This is Bing. Yeah. All right, and let's use this one. Let's use this one, but we are not actually after the form that is inside it. We're after the content. So their own, the image is the last. So what we need to do here is just to rearrange the content. So here, change this one. So move it up like that. So save it so that we can have the same structure. And as you can see here, the form is coming first, and the image is the image container is the second one. So what do we want to do here now? What we want to do is to make sure they are side by side, and again too, they are sharing equal number of spacing inside the container. How do we do that? So how do we do that? So we have some values, or we have some property that you can apply on the item. So the flex item too has some property you can apply there. And one of them is known as the flex basis, which is the ID size of this your box before it can expand or before it can shrink. So before it gets shrink, because there's when the element comes to the page for the first time, there's a size it's going to maintain. Then if there is not enough space, you have to shrink, or when there is not, you have to expand. So there like that. So flex basis is what you can use to give you the ID size that is going to have before it started shrinking or before it started expanding there like that. So here now, if I give it like 200 pixels here. So what I'm saying here is that this box, so it can expand. Let me remove the padding so that we can see this in. So save, go back to the page there. But right now, as you can see, nothing is working. If you look at it, nothing is working at all. Why is it not working? Is because some of these or all the flex property, they don't work unless you display as flex. So when you want to use any of this, like all this, your align, justify, gap, and so forth like that, when you want to use them, you must display flex first. If your display is not flex or is not grid, all these property are not going to work at all like that. So in order for this one to work now, it means the container we need to turn into flex, and we need to display it as a flex. And once I display it as flex, go to the page, you see now that the ID size for this stuff is going to be 200 like that. So for example, remove this thing. As you can see, by default it will maintain the size of the content, but we want to give it like we are giving it this ID size. So before you know, when you are expanding, or before you expand, or before you shrink, if the space is not there, this is the size I want you to maintain. This one too, you can just go to the element and just give it width directly. It will still work there. like that. But this one works with flex like that. This one works when you display as flex, and width work anytime that you want there like that. It's not every time you are going to even be doing it like this. In a real sense, I'm going to be using width on the box directly, or using other property we are going to be talking about. And as you can see here, we have the box showing, but that doesn't mean it will always maintain that size. So if you reduce the box, if there is no more space, as you can see, it will start shrinking. So before it started shrinking, or before it started expanding, when you give it the option to be able to expand to later on. So what ID size do you want it to have? That's what we call the flex basis. But if you look at it now, it's shrinking down. So what if you don't want it to shrink? We have the flex shrink here. So when you give it 0, it means this element, it will never shrink at all. So when there is no space, it will always maintain this basis that you give to it. It will never go down. You know that it will cause overflow on the parent. So save down, and since there is no, we still have enough space left. So, but now if you reduce it, as you can see, it will never shrink at all. That basis is what is going to maintain. Again too, when there is enough space, do you want it to expand too? You can use the other one, which is going to be flex grow. What this one means is that when there is enough space, can I grow past this basis? So this one is, can I shrink past the basis? Or this one is, can I grow past the basis when there is enough space or no enough space? So when you give it 0, which is what is happening by default, you can see it will never, you can see we still have enough space here, so it will never grow to cover the remaining space that is left. But if you give it 1, or if you give it any other value, that's the proportion of the growing compared to the other elements you have there. Once I save that, as you can see now, so any space that is left in the parent, it will always grow to cover it. For the string too, it will always shrink, but it doesn't shrink past the basis that you gave to it like that. That one, if you give it basis, it is shrinking, but it will get to a point, it will never go less than the basis. So this flex grow, do you want it to grow past the basis? Flex shrink, do you want it to shrink below your this in there, the basis like that. And these 3 properties here now, you can combine them together into a single property, because that's what I normally use, which is this flex. So you can apply your grow, you can apply your string, and you can apply your basis like that, all together in one line, just like your, as you can see here, the margin, and applying top and bottom, and applying left and right. But that doesn't mean I cannot do them separately. So the same thing here too, you can do it with this one. And this one too, again, it comes with some shorthand value that you can use. For example, if I use this flex one, what this mean is that, what it means is that it grows like that, it shrink, and the basis is 0. So that means ID size by default is 0, or whatever. So when you say ID size, your basis is 0, it means maintain the original width that you have on the element there. You know, your element by default, this element now, by default it will just take the size of its content. You know, before we started applying all these bases, whatever stuff, as you can see, this is the, so when it says 0, this is the 0 like that. So it will use the original, like the way the element used to use its normal width like that. But that doesn't mean it cannot grow and it cannot string when there is available space. That one is when you use this flex one. So here now, if I use flex one like that, so it does the same thing as me not typing all this stuff on a separate line. So save it now. As you can see, it will grow because we have enough space left in the container. If I go down to, as you can see, it will always shrink by going down like that. So it will grow, it will shrink. That's this flex one. But again too, if you want them to now, you know, by default is, if you only give one of them, what you do, because the way you give the value is depending on whether you give one of them or you give all of them that is inside it. So if you give only one of them, what will happen is that the one you do not give anything like flex of 1 or 2 or whatever stuff, what it will do is that all those ones will take up their space first. Then the one you now give flex one will now wait, then take the remaining that is left. That's how it works. So which means here now, if I give this one maybe a weight of 300, it will allow this one to take its own 300 first. Then when it's done with 300, the remaining one that is not, this one will now take that remaining one. But if you want it to be proportion, then you give it for the 2 of them or the 3 of them or the 400. So here now, if I give them to 1, so this means both of them will take 1, 1. So because you know the total value now is 2. So that means 1/2 of the weight this one to 1/2, which is 50%, 50/50. And once you save it, what else, it doesn't work like that again every time. It depends on whether you have enough space or not like that. So because I have enough space here. So as you can see, it's working. Again, too, the way it works is depending on type of the content you put inside. As the way I put some crazy content here, they can actually push this one because it can shrink. So most of some of the content here, they always want to take big space. But there's a way of telling them, which is by saying, oh no, don't shrink me at all. Because at sometimes you give it a definite width that it should be 300. And that one you give flex one. If the content inside is really long, they will just shift that one. It will wait first for them to take. But so what you now do with that one too is that you give it a minimum width and don't string past that one. So that's where all this string and this thing comes in like that. But for now, majorly you don't really need it. But there will going to be a time that they are going to come in handy like that. All right. So as you can see, they are now being placed side by side. So if I want the phone to take 2 times of the spacing that the image is taking there, what I just need to do is to give it 2 here. So the total value here is 3. So that means this one will take 1/3 here, and this one will take 2/3, which is the percentage of whatever that is going on there. So as you can see, this one will always take times 2 of whatever this one is going to have on the page. And again, based on that, we can always apply it on this design that we have here like that. So if you look at this design, it's simple, but a lot of things are not going to be added. So if you look at it, no, not line. I want the rectangle. So you can think of it as this is the page. So inside the page, let me draw it properly. So we have the page. So inside the page, there, like that. Um, so inside the page, you see that we have the background already, and the stuff is divided into two. So you have the left section, and you have the right section like that. So which you can use, but again too, yeah, if I want to do it, I'm not going to place them directly inside that body. I'm still going to create another container here. But you might be asking me, why do I need to create the container? If you look at it, you see that the content is not getting to the edge. It's stopped at a particular side. So if you want to control that without you doing a lot of course, you can't be using padding left and right. You can't be increasing padding left and right. You know that the width is going to be this. What you do is create that container, and that container is what you now limit in the width. We've talked about the height and the width. So you can say, okay, this box, you can expand though, but don't go past this particular width. And you can now move them to the center and do what you want to do there like that. Like that, me too, I have to, I'm coming. I mean, okay.